Halloween Town high. More like Halloween Town, you need to be high to enjoy this. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen?
We shouldn't have started off with a cold opening again. I
Hey,
think we've gone with it too many times in a row.
I feel like I felt it. I felt the flow. I needed to say it. Mostly because my sister was watching Halloween Town on demand today.
Well,
She's like, we need to get into the Halloween spirit. And I'm like, it's
literally
August.
August.
Like, I love Halloween's my favorite holiday. I love Halloween. And even I'm like, that's ridiculous. Welcome to the podcast, everybody.
Hey there, everyone.
Carter here, and super special, extra special guest for our summer end of season sale, Nick.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
That's
Nick?
the only reason why I'm here. It's the super end of summer special season sale.
Yeah, it's the sweeps. It's like sweeps week.
Say that 5 times fast.
I will not.
Yeah, neither will I.
It's like sweeps week on a TV show. You get all the big characters in. You have the cameo appearances. Get the big ratings. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, you love to see that.
Got a lot to talk about today. Some hefty topics, some happy topics, some politically incorrect topics, some politically correct topics.
Well,
Stuff that makes you think, stuff that makes you mad, stuff that makes you threaten someone's life over a soccer video game. We'll get to that.
Yeah, that happened.
But first, we're going to start just some fun hometown news. So me, Nick, and a bunch of our friends went this thing called pitch and putt. The idea is they give you a sand wedge and a putter, and you just have like a mini golf course you got to get across. And
Not mini golf. A smaller, scaled-down version of an actual golf course.
Like a 1 to, like on a scale, they shrink it by like 3/4.
Yeah.
So it was fun. I really suck at putting, so Nick and it was 3 people in our group, right?
Yeah.
You, me, and Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just getting shellackled the whole time. We don't keep track of score. We just do. Oh, whoever had the least strokes in the hole gets a point. It's just because no one ever wants to write down.
No one ever wants to keep a scorecard on them.
Yeah.
No one's about that.
Yeah, so it's just easier that way.
Yeah, you're right.
I did end up winning So
you won the one hole.
Yeah.
Oh, we have to talk about
exactly.
that. Oh.
That's why. Why did you think I put it on the topic list?
Oh
So
my gosh, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot.
So like my problem is I can never hit it off the tee well. It always just goes sailing. But I find my second shot's always great though. Always on the money.
Yeah,
almost a hole in 2.
We're pretty much certain that you should just kick the ball off the tee anywhere and then hit a second shot.
Yeah, like just punt it and see if I can get a good. Yeah, but then I'm like where I should have been on hit 1 after that second.
Hey, whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah, I guess. But anyway, so I finally win a hole, the 9th. I'm getting so rowdy.
Yeah.
Then the next hole, I drive it far right on next to these flowers, and I'm like, oh, it's just on a little dirt and like grass shaving some mound.
Yeah.
So after they go, I step up on it. It's a little softer than I anticipated. I swing, put all of my weight on my back foot, and I just
No, that's not how it happened.
What?
No, it's not how it happened.
I beg your pardon.
You have to tell if you're gonna tell it. So you hit the first shot into the
flowers,
grass
yeah.
clipping piles of the flowers.
Yeah.
You hit it again, and it didn't go far enough, and then went into the flowers. In your efforts to get further into this pile of grass clippings into the flowers.
Oh,
to hit your
right! I
third
forgot.
shot,
I dribbled it in further in.
Your third shot, going to get your third shot, you took one step
Oh,
into the
God, I
middle of this
remember
pile, and you disappeared like 3 feet down into
my
the
leg
earth.
just dropped hard, like
I
up to my
literally-
kneecap.
I literally had no idea what happened. I
And-
was so confused.
My other leg starts sinking too, and I start just like trying to move my feet to get out. My right shoe just comes clean off. It just suctions it, and like
Oh my god!
and the inside of this, like I'm just gonna call it a poop pile. It was probably poop.
No, I don't think it was. I think that it was just the mud got so raunchy that it would just smell awful.
I hope. But like it literally, like it feels moist in there and sticky.
I'm not saying there wasn't a little bit of poop in there, but
It was like, ugh, it was so warm and gross, and I'm just
When
like,
you-
I'm literally speechless. My
when
shoe's
you-
just gone.
when you came out, you took 3 total steps in this pile. You came out with both legs completely covered in mud, and one shoe missing.
So my sock is covered in crap.
I literally couldn't handle it. I haven't laughed
I
so
was
hard in a
speechless.
very long
I had
time.
to use my wedge to try to dig
just to
the shoe
dig
out,
your shoe
which
out
I
of
got. Then I
3
have
feet.
to hobble all the way back to the starting point, go into like the stand outside the little office they have, and go. I stepped in what I thought was solid ground. Could I please use your bathroom? And they make me use the hose outside. I end up cleaning it off, but the smell was just permeating. And I'm just speechless. I just tossed my pitching wedge away because it was covered in crap.
Oh
Like,
my gosh! Literally one of the
shoes
funniest
still
things
smell.
I've seen.
I've drowned the shoes in that washing liquid you use, and they're not. I'm gonna have to do some high tech home remedies like
I guess
vinegar
they still
and freezing
smell.
them. Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, it's bad. And I
Oh, you
just
hate
got
to see it.
those.
Oh,
I was gonna
man.
wear those like fancy weaved like hemp shoes they have nowadays. I don't know what they call them, docksiders maybe. And if I used those, I would have just had to throw them out. I wouldn't have been able to save those.
Yeah, maybe it's for the best.
Oh my god! I just wanted to bring that up.
I couldn't believe I can't believe I forgot about that. That was literally one of the funnier things I've seen this
and
summer.
I just didn't recover. I had some of the worst colds of my life after that.
Yeah.
I'm just so.
How do you come back from that?
You
though?
don't.
That's rattling, man.
Oh, it was.
Well, you had a chance on another hole.
Yeah,
like
and then
14th,
I choked because I'm just defeatist.
That one that goes
point.
straight up the hill.
Yeah.
You hit a great tee shot.
Yeah, but then I just got such a defeatist attitude where I just like, I'm like, I have to lose because I smell like feces now. I smell of literal feces. You might as well surgically remove my knees with feces, and it would be the same thing.
Oh man, unbelievable.
Another fun home news. We started playing FIFA as a group for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
So how we do it is, so it's 2-on-2. How we do it is, you don't get to pick your team. You just go to the top option and hit random, and you can do that 3 times and pick from those teams. Or you can gamble.
If you don't like any of those 3 teams, you can gamble, and the next randomize you hit, you have to go with that team. So it makes for some great fun before the games even begin. And it was bananas last night. Like, I've played FIFA before, but I don't know if I've ever played FIFA with a group of people, like
where
2 people on a side,
where some of them are super competitive and angry.
It's frustrating.
It's genuinely frustrating.
It's frustrating because you just like you pass it to your own teammate, and the next thing you know, the guy's kicking it out of bounds.
It's wonky.
Nearly scoring on your own goal. It's like, what just happened?
It's wonky as hell. Let's go.
It was a great time though.
Like, one kid just kept screaming, it's effing broken. The game sucks. It doesn't work right. I kept insisting on trying to pass it from the goalie as opposed to punting it, and every single time it got
may have cost us a couple of goals.
I could never figure out how the penalty kicks worked, and ended up sailing 2 that could have won us games. Yeah, it just was some.
So fun though.
It was fun.
It was fun
some of the most fun
get rowdy like
had
that.
in a very long time.
Oh, you'll love to see that.
Oh, they're bananas. BANANAS.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh man, that was nuts. I just wanted to bring that up because I'm still shaking from that. Nick's a pretty mellow guy. He never gets that angry. He just tosses a pillow across the room like, oh, he's mad.
Oh man,
like you're just like punted across
the passing feature. I'm okay. The shooting feature I've got down.
Functional.
The shooting feature I've got down. The defense is kind of like, if you don't know how to play defense, then well, you're just like, you can't press buttons correctly. But the passing feature, there's got to be some better way to do this. I feel like I only completed like 60% of my passes last night, and it's like, that shouldn't happen. It's a video game.
Yeah, it's
in real life that's feasible.
Yeah,
because I'm not very good at soccer. But in a video game, it's like,
yeah, no.
What the heck?
Ooh, we should stick to Mario Strikers.
Now that's a realistic.
I mean, that's based on dumb luck, but at least it makes sense.
That's a realistic soccer game that I can get down
to. Moving on, at long last, for our season finale, super spectacular end of clearance sale. Solves all your problems, baby. Don't judge me. I finally saw it. I finally saw Ghoul Grabbers. I'm convinced if they just called it that, no one would have complained. and then you found out in the movie it was a Ghostbusters remake. Um, so after all the hoopla, all the rage, all of the rats in a cage,
That rhyme?
yeah, all this is a song.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, what's that from?
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. I don't remember who sang it, but I hear it every now and then. Wait, why am I talking about this? Go back to the movie. The movie, right? Honestly, after all that, I liked it. Honestly, it reminded me a lot of the first Iron Man, where it's like, the first act has a lot of fun, like, the first act's pretty cool, has a lot of cool character moments and quips. The second act has all this fun stuff where they're playing around with their technology and they're building stuff, and that was the funnest part, because, like, well, I'll get to that in a minute. And then the third act, it's like you have sort of a forgettable villain with a forgettable plan, but it's okay because it's colorful and actiony, so you sort of like let it pass. And then it has a mid post credit teaser for a new movie. Honestly, my favorite thing was, well, one, I loved the new characters. Pretty much all of them.
I was just gonna say when Melissa McCarthy is in any movie,
Yeah, she
it's
was funny.
probably
She
gonna
had a
be
lot of
pretty
good
funny.
quips. There was a running gag with her and this, like, trying to, ordering from this Chinese place, and they always effed up her order, which was actually a lot funnier than it had any right to be. Like, I imagine if I read this on a script, I'd be like, this isn't very funny. But in motion, it was very funny. Kristen Wiig was pretty good. She gets to be the straight man. I guess she's the closest thing to like a Bill Murray dry character. She doesn't get as much to do comedically as the others, I guess, but she's still pretty funny. Um, I will say there's one weird thing where, like, so one of the big subplots is the mayor of New York keeps like insisting that they're a hoax because it's like, people can't handle the idea that there's ghosts. Like, they freak out about the stupidest things, and you're gonna tell them there's freaking ghosts and crap running all over New York City. They'd lose their minds. So they keep having to say the Ghostbusters are a fraud, which Kristen Wiig's big emotional arc. So the big emotional arc, because it's like, there's the plot, but then there's like Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy are the two characters that like grow together. They're the ones who get like the conventional arc. The idea was back when they were kids, Kristen Wiig's character. So she saw a ghost as a kid, and no one believed her, and everyone's like, you're a freak, you're the ghost girl. But Melissa McCarthy's character, I really should call them by their actual character names, but I feel like to make it easier for you, I'll just refer to them by the actors because that's easier for you to memorize. So Melissa McCarthy's character was like, I believe you, and well, this all happens off screen, but and they grew up together. And it turns out they wrote a book about paranormal stuff, like theoretical stuff, not like any proven stuff.
Yeah.
Flash forward to like the present where the plot takes place. Kristen Wiig's character, so she's works at Columbia, which is nice because I've actually never seen Columbia's campus before, despite living in the city. So I hope that was the actual campus because it looked nice.
Huh. All right.
She's on the verge of getting tenure, which the stereotype with that is like, and this is why I can never get fired no matter what I do. And it turns out Melissa McCarthy ends up is selling their book online now, and she's like, oh no, I can't have them thinking I believe in ghosts. She goes to confront Melissa McCarthy, and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna go check out this one haunted house where apparently there's a ghost. They see it, and then they're like, oh my god, there's a ghost. Oh god, we were right. All of our stuff was right. They don't sound like that. I just, for some reason, went into that voice.
That's a little disappointing.
Yeah, and the arc is sort of them, like Melissa McCarthy is sort of like, hey, it doesn't matter if people believe us or not. This is like, this is science. We're doing good. We're doing a public service. This is big stuff we're doing. We're on the cutting edge. Someday, we'll get our respect. Whereas Kristen Wiig, who's spent her entire life being made fun of for believing in ghosts, is like, no, we have to show them. We can't let them. I'm tired of them saying we're frauds. I can't take this anymore. Which leads to this moment right after they meet the villain for the first time, where she they essentially stopped a cataclysmic event in New York, and the mayor plays it off as, oh, they were just trying to get attention. And Kristen Wiig separates from the group, and she's on her own for a while, and then she figures out, oh wait, the bad guy meant for us to find him. It's one of those things. The bad guy meant for us to find him because this is just another step in his plan. I gotta get back to the gang. I'm like, well, why did you leave the gang in the first place? It feels like there's a couple scenes missing. I will say that. Like, there's a couple scenes in the second and beginning of the third act where I'm like, the transitions here are not working. Which I'm like is a shame because I feel like if you added those scenes, it would have gone from a pretty darn good movie to a great movie in some ways. And Kate McKinnon ends up stealing the movie. Her character is called Holtzman. Kate McKinnon, you might know, she's the current person who plays Hillary Clinton on SNL.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I barely recognized her because she looks completely different in this movie. I loved her. She's like the zany one. She like honestly, she reminds me of me when I just like go off the deep end and lose sleep and just start saying things. She's really funny. Leslie Jones ends up being a pleasant surprise because everyone complained about her parts in the trailer, like the power of Betty compels you. Like people made fun of her for that, but honestly, she ends up being hilarious because she's the only one. Like she's not a scientist. She works at the MTA, like the subway system. But her whole thing is like she's like, oh, I'm like a big history buff, so I can help you guys find all these places, and I'm like, oh, I'll be able to warn you in advance. Which I'm like, hey, you know what? That's a pretty cool,
All right.
like,
It's a
you know
solid
what?
character.
Yeah, I like that
Character
because it's like,
backstory.
you know, this series glorifies and glamorizes like the STEM fields, but I'm like, you know what gets underappreciated? It's always math and English, math and English. No one ever acknowledges the importance of history classes. Like, no one ever appreciates the importance of historians and keeping records and teaching our kids about the past. And I'm like, it's cool that we finally have a character who can do that.
Do I have to say it, Carter?
What?
Will somebody please think of the children?
Brought it home.
There
But
you go.
yeah, so yeah, Holtzman or Kate and Leslie are like the two. You know, they're the end up being the comedy relief characters, and Kristen Wiig and McCarthy's arc. You know, it's pretty solid. It
All right.
hits the notes hit.
I
It
believe
hits. Yeah. So when she ends up joining the group again and saving them, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Um, my favorite thing again, because I don't know, I love like cool sci-fi technology in movies, like, and it's so cool, like, because, you know, they have the proton packs as usual and the little traps, but they add all kinds of crazy new things. Like, Melissa McCarthy gets, like, a
That
punching glove.
glove.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a cool idea. Just going around, like with dust knuckles and just clocking people the whole time. That's cool. Like, Kate McKinnon gets, like, dual-wield pistols, and she just starts going around. Like, the one scene in the final act where she's just, like, running around shooting people, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Um, like they get a wood chipper that just turns the ghost into goop, which I'm like, oh, that's cool. What's the other one? They get little grenades, and I'm like, see, now this is cool because it's like thinking like this is what should have been in the original Ghostbusters 2, like new hit technology that advances it but still feels believable. Like that was probably my favorite part. I also just love the design of everything. I'm a big sucker for art direction. I just like how all the devices feel like they were sort of jerry rigged for metal and bits and pieces. I love the design of the ghosts. This is like they're cool but also scary. Like they're all CGI. Like my big thing is I never find CGI stuff that scary. Like for me, it's always the practical effects that are scary because I'm like, ooh, that looks weird in other work. Like that looks believable physically, and that was one of the advantages the original Ghostbusters had because most of the ghosts were pretty much all of them really were either stop motion or practical, and I'm like, ah, that's cool. Whereas this is like I'm like, no, these are scary and they're CGI. Good for you. Um, like I said, the biggest. Also, I just love the colors in the movie, very neon and vibrant. It's like it's so nice to see a movie that doesn't just put an Instagram filter on and leave it at that. Like it's like color.
Hate Instagram filters.
Exactly.
I don't even have an Instagram, and I don't like
Really?
Instagram filters.
Yeah. Well, oh, I was about to say neither do I. Why was I acting like that's a big deal?
Yeah. What the heck, man?
I don't know. I love the like I think the all right, the three I'll get to the flaws. The three biggest flaws are like I said, it feels like a couple scenes are missing that should have been kept in.
Yeah.
Too a little too much improv. Honestly, a lot of people complained about the jokes in the trailer. Honestly, in terms of like hit and miss ratio, it was 2 for 1, like 2 laughs for every one, sort of like, which is a little too, which is not as high as I'd like it. And the problem is, it has the same problem a lot of modern comedies have, where they do a lot of improv. Like they'll make the framework for a scene and just let the actors sort of do their shtick for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is like someone just has to be like, look, I know you think this is funny, but you have to cut it down. You gotta edit it. There's 1 or 2 scenes where they just go on really, really long, and I'm just kind of like, can we get to the next? Can we move on? It's not funny anymore. That happens a couple of times. Um, Ooh, one thing I forgot to mention. So, okay, so the main villain, his name is Rowan. He's like a nerd. Like, this is science versus science. He's like, you know what? I hate this world. I'm gonna create this cataclysm where all these ghosts, like, the idea is there's a barrier between the ghost world and the human world, and he's gonna set off all these ghost events to break it, and he's gonna like lead the charge. I like the concept, and they even said the idea of like, oh, he was inspired by Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy's book. Like that's where he got all of his ideas from. But they never really let him develop. He sort of just pops in and out when the plot needs him, which I'm like, there's a germ of good idea here, and a lot of people complained about like, oh, the original movie was all about science beating superstition. Why is science fighting science here? And I'm like, have you been on the internet in the last like 5 years? Science, like nerd culture and science, like it's gone off the deep end. It's like and this isn't some like social justice, like oh you anti-women people. No, you know what? Both sides need to be called out on this. I see you, Steven Universe fans, who harassed that one artist off Twitter because he didn't ship your characters. For context, an artist from Steven Universe tweeted this fan art of two characters getting together, Peridot and Lapis, Lapidot as they're apparently called, and that outraged all these people who want Lapis or Peridot and Amethyst to get together, and they sent the artist a bunch of harassing things, and she left Twitter. So you know what? Both sides need to be called out in this.
Yeah.
Internet has made nerd culture has made all of us horrible. I mean, Jesus, people were burning Captain America comics like because of the Hydra thing, a thing actual Nazis did. Like, yeah, everyone needs to be like. Honestly, like I couldn't think of a better villain than like a nerd who thinks he's entitled to like global domination. So honestly, I say good job having the like knowing your what to make the like what a theoretical villain should be. I appreciate it. I like the concept. Needed to develop it a little more.
Okay.
Also, so he ends up creating this cataclysm. They end up bringing the military in, and he just goes like does a little point, and everyone freezes because in at the end of, near the end of the second act, the Ghostbusters figure out where he's going because they're like it's all the epicenter is this hotel that does not actually exist. I don't think. I think they double check Times Square because it's right by Times Square because that's where you get all your product placement out. Because Sony has a weird thing. Like I can like this movie and still say Sony's a crappy studio, and because they always set everything in Times Square, and normally I like that, but the product placement just gets so overwhelming. Anyway,
Yeah.
so they go, he has this huge device, and they're like, we're going to stop you. And he's like, okay, grabs two electrical bars and kills himself. And they're just, whoa, okay. That was unexpected.
What?
Yeah,
The
just straight
villain
up,
just kills
yeah,
himself?
straight up electrocutes himself with ghost technology. But then it turns out he's a ghost now. And Kate McKinnon starts reading through one
What?
of the guy's diaries where he has all of his notes. And it's showing him, it has an exact he made a drawing of him killing himself and then becoming a ghost. And she's like, "Oh, that was a part of his. That's their version of the villain meant for us to capture him, so he can come back as a ghost and like do all this himself." He briefly possesses Chris Hemsworth. Also, Chris Hemsworth, love him in this. He's hysterical. Like,
Oh yeah.
plus just the idea of having their receptionist be this beefcake, like a guy who looks like he should come off a trashy romance novel, inspired. Of all the creative decisions in this movie, that was probably the best and most inspired and like fully realized. Good for you guys. Um, anyway, so he does this point. The entire military freezes in like a dance pose, and then when the Ghostbusters walk through, they're still in that pose. And there is a good joke where Leslie Jones just goes, "Why y'all standing like this?" And I'm like, "That's pretty funny." But then in the credits, they have all these images and stuff, and they have an entire dance number with those. And I'm like, was that originally supposed to be in the movie? And I'm like, why would you cut that out? It just looks weird then. Like the credits, as the credits are rolling,
Wait,
they
he
just
can just freeze people?
well, because he's Super Ghost.
That's not how this works.
Well, he possesses
That's
people.
not how any of this works.
He possesses people.
How can you possess an entire army at the same time?
It's ghost powers.
See, I thought this was science, man.
Yeah, it's more supernatural at this point. Maybe a little too much reliance on like sort of more lowbrow humor. Like, well, the problem is, it's just a different creative team where it's like, yeah, the Ghostbusters were super dry and professional because you had Bill Murray, who is the deadest of pans, and Harold Ramis, who is also very deadpan. And I'm like, well, it's just a different cast, so you work with their sense of humor, and it's funny.
Right.
There is one funny fart joke. I'll give them that. They had one funny fart joke where it's like, hey, we have one of those EPK, the recordy things that record ghosts, and it's like, oh, those things don't work. We have one. What? Listen, get close. And they're like, oh my god, this is the first time we ever got someone to get that close. And I'm like, that's really, you know what? You made it work. Good for you. And then, like I said, the third act, it's like, it's colorful and cool, but it's like, it feels like there's a couple scenes missing to add a little oomph, and the villain's not developed enough. But visually, it's cool. It has the same problem that a lot of people do, where it's like, all right, we're going to do the Avengers thing, where we have a whole act of action. And it's like, that only worked in Avengers because the characters were very well defined in the action. Like, I could swap around, and a lot of people have made this note already. You could swap around a lot of the Ghostbusters, and it would be like you could give them different weapons and stuff, and it wouldn't really make a difference. That's the problem. Like, they have great character, but that character does not carry into the action scenes, which is the problem. There is one great bit. So they get to the epicenter of this, where Rowan is, and he goes like, "What form do you want me to take?" Sort of riffing on the original movie's idea, where it's like, you'll pick the end of the world. And so Leslie Jones says, "Could you just be something nice and cuddly?" And he goes, "Oh, like this?" And he pops up as the Ghostbusters logo, not like a literally a 2D hand drawn version of the logo. Like, hey, like, he's moving around. He jumps out of the little cross and makes himself a little bow tie. And I'm like, something about this I love. Like, it's just really creative, and I love how it visually looks. And then he's like, "Is this what you want?" "Yeah." "Okay." And then he turns into a giant 3D version of it, like the monstrous version you see in the trailers. And I'm like, that's actually really creative. I like that. Like, it's funny, it's creative, and it also just instilled in me the idea of, what I would really like in terms of like our remake culture. I would like some kind of not a remake or a reboot of the same plot, but a spiritual successor to Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the HD age, where the drawings can be even crisper and like pop even more. Like, that would be cool. Also, honestly, much like Force Awakens, one of its biggest flaws is it's way too obsessed with its nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like, there's a few too many
I feel like
wings.
we had to kind of see that one coming though with,
Yeah.
with the Ghostbusters
Yeah,
remake.
because I know, but like I would have like the funny thing is, for all that raging of like, oh, it's insulting the franchise, it would have been better if they clearly had the love of the franchise and captured its spirit, but I feel like like it felt the need to like reference, which I feel like is a defensive mechanism. I don't know, but a few too many like. I appreciate the cameos, but some of them were just really bad. The Bill Murray one sucked. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. Like, he didn't make any fun jokes. Honestly, I think his character got killed. That's how vague it is. I won't spoil it for people who want to see the movie. Dan Aykroyd's was kind of funny because he's like a cabbie, and he's famous for being the one guy in the cast who actually believed in ghosts. Like, that's where he came up with the idea. And like, during interviews, it would be so weird. He'd be like, some people don't want to tell their kids about the truth, but I have a responsibility to them. And you realize, this guy's crazy. He was a cabbie, and Kristen Wiig's trying to get back to the group, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to Chinatown. That's too far for my taste." And she's like, "But there's actual ghosts flying around." And he's like, "Oh, those are just level 4 floaters. That's not a problem." And I'm like, "See, that's actually funny." Ernie Hudson, who is who's the guy, the one who was originally going to be Eddie Murphy's character, but then he dropped out. He gets a great one at the end. He's Leslie Jones' uncle. They end up destroying the car that was his, and he just comes. What the hell happened? That was funny. Sigourney Weaver shows up in the credit scene, which was nice. She was funny. Honestly, I mean, it's more Bill Murray's, but there's just so many like, who are we gonna call? Or like, if there's something strange, like, there's just way too many references. Like, there's a whole stopping moment where they find their logo, like a guy makes their logo for them. Not the scene in the trailers; it's a different one where I'm kind of like, pick up this a little bit. The one cameo I did love was Harold Ramis. There's a scene in Colombia where they walk by and there's just a gold bust of his head, and that was actually really sweet. I'm just like, oh, it's actually really subtle and nice. Um, yeah, so you know what? I really dug the movie. It was fun. It's a shame we might not get a sequel because, frankly, I think with this cast, with a slightly better plot, you'd have something great. Maybe not necessarily something as big as the original Ghostbusters, but that was in an era where it like that was the right place, right time, the perfect chemistry to create that lightning bolt of a classic. Like you just don't have that in modern Hollywood in most circumstances. And honestly, more like maybe it's just because I'm salty about Ben-Hur being remade. But again, guys, like I wanted to rant, I wanted to rile, I wanted to froth blood, but honestly, we live in a world. Just this summer alone, while we are raging about Ghostbusters as a sacred text, they are remaking Ben-Hur with CGI action scenes for an August release. Literally, like, the term spit in the eye gets thrown around a lot these days. No, that is a spit in the eye to a Hollywood classic. That is an insult to everything that movie. Like, how. Who has the cojones, the brass iron knuckleballs, to do something that insulting to cinema? And people are giving it slightly positive reviews, which I imagine is more out of apathy, where it's like, it wasn't that bad. No, unacceptable under any circumstances.
Are we having fun now, Carter?
No, we are not, sir. No, we are not. And again, I will hammer the same points home of like, RoboCop got remade, and that movie was insulting to its legacy. It didn't get what made the original good. It couldn't figure out how to make it work, and it was just a crappy ass movie anyway. That was terrible. And you can be like, well, but it's different because we watched Ghostbusters as a kid, and it means a lot to us. No, you know what? RoboCop had a cartoon. Everything was marketed to kids back then. Freaking RoboCop had toys and like video games and cartoons. Freaking Toxic Avenger had a cartoon at one point. Like, this isn't something like, this is about our childhood. Every remake from the 80s is somehow connected to your childhood, for God's sakes. They made, like, everything was for kids back then. It's just.
We've talked about this before,
Yeah.
so I can see that this is clearly frustrating.
Yeah, it's like, I sort of overshot it because I thought I'd see the movie sooner, and I did all this rage about it, which I'm like disappointed that I can't bring the fire. But at this point, if you're still raging about a Ghostbusters remake in 2016, the hell's wrong with you? Like, I understand for a lot of people it's disappointing that you're not going to get that third movie with the like main cast again, and I appreciate the nostalgia for that. But it's like, one, any attempt to do that without Harold Ramis would be insulting. It would be gross and manipulative and cruel. And three, you want to complain about someone? Bitch at Bill Murray. He's the one guy. He was the one guy this whole time that was holding them back. He was always the guy who's like, I don't want to do a new Ghostbusters. I know, like, you know what? I know we all love Bill Murray, but we gotta call him out for that. He's what kept you from getting your third movie. Not Paul Feig, not Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, or Leslie Jones. They were gonna make this remake. They were gonna make it a remake no matter what, and you had to decide whether or not you wanted this all-female cast, which is at least experimental, or did you want the Adam Sandler Club, or did you want Seth Rogen Club? And you know what? We got the best possible option of a bad idea. Now I'm gonna have a little ecto cooler. Cool down.
Yeah, this episode brought to you by Ecto Cooler.
Ecto cooler. It's good.
It's good.
Let's go sleep.
I don't think shaking it is going to make a difference, though.
I want to believe. I brought two. Okay, it's a little tart. Okay. Just have a tiny sip to start. It's all right. Not a huge fan. I don't seem to get what the appeal was when you were a kid, but okay. Also, this is the first time I've sort of run overtime with Ghostbusters, but let me just say, one thing I did love, I've never liked Slimer as a character. I've never gotten what I think he's a testament to, they did not expect this movie to be popular with kids, and they just ended up running with it, where he's just, the face of Ghostbusters. Because it's he's the face of Ghostbusters, even though their logo is, a completely different ghost. But he ends up stealing their car at one point and driving around like a party bus of all these other ghosts. And I'm like, that's actually kind of funny. You know what? Good for you for finding something to do with him.
I can get down with that.
Yeah. Oh, and one more note about the third act. They have this whole thing where he's like transforming New York Times Square back into its like sleazy '70s version, and like all of the ghosts are like either themed around New York stuff, like there's a huge parade of ghosts with giant ghost balloons, or like there's pilgrims, or there's like gang guys, and I'm like, there's a germ of a good idea there. Like you could do something with that, but it's just like it's just side dressing. Like they do it, but they don't like it's just visual. Like it's cool, but you don't really build anything plot wise with that. Like nothing about his plot. Like he never mentioned that he wished was nostalgic for the past or anything.
Fair enough.
Like I feel like there's an idea there that it just
Yeah.
didn't
No, that sounds cool.
hammer
I
home.
agree with that.
Yeah, it's visually really cool, but it feels like something's missing.
Yeah.
Moving on. I mean, our only other big topic we had this week, I felt okay going a little long, because the Olympics pretty much is our last big topic.
Yeah.
Nick, would you like to take the floor?
I can take the floor. So the Olympics coming to a close last night. This being the recording day on Monday, and the Olympic ceremonies ending on Sunday night in the Americana, the giant soccer stadium slash I guess maybe all-purpose stadium
More like wasteland at this point.
in Rio de Janeiro. I have to say, the closing ceremonies not as cool as the opening ceremonies in my opinion. Although I did like, and we'll get to it, I did like
Yeah, we'll get to that.
the nod
I was
to
not a fan of either.
to Tokyo, which they do of course every year, looking ahead to the next Olympic host. We got a little taste of what we might see in Tokyo, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
To be honest, my favorite thing in terms of opening and closing that Rio did was the bit they sent to London where they had the samba dancer getting the Brit to cut loose. Like that was their most creative piece.
yeah,
Also, the parkour on the buildings was cool, but that's about it.
yeah, yeah. I thought it was good, but we saw some great competition over even just since the last time that we spoke. Uh, and had our last podcast. I've come up with like 5 moments that I thought were the best since we've last come on the air. Um, I don't know what you have, but
Yeah.
I'll start here.
Good idea.
So my top five at fifth. So I kind of cheated. Like I couldn't pick five individual things because there's just too many amazing,
Yeah.
inspiring
Agreed.
stories. So fifth, my category is age is but a number. Age is but a number because two really fabulous things happened in this past week of the Olympics. Japanese wrestler Kaori Icho becomes the first wrestler with 4 golds in an individual event, and is the first female to win an individual gold at 4 separate Olympics. I thought that was really impressive. Say what you want about wrestling isn't the primetime Olympic sport that
Yeah.
it used to be.
Unless
and
people
we
are
don't-
throwing chairs at each other.
we don't know where to watch it, or what does this even mean. But 4 Olympic golds in 4 separate Olympics, especially in a sport as physically demanding as wrestling,
Absolutely.
pretty impressive. Similarly, in the high jump competition, Spanish high jumper Ruth Beata won her first Olympic medal at the age of 37 years old. Her fourth
Oh,
Olympics,
Lord.
she had medaled numerous times in world championships, made her first international debut in 1996.
What was
20
where
years
was it
ago,
even in
at 17 years old. It was in Atlanta. She wasn't in the Olympics in Atlanta,
Oh,
but she made her first international competition debut at the age of 17.
that's
She
cool.
comes back at 37 out of retirement and wins her first medal, and it's gold. I thought
Okay.
that was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So that's 5.
Okay.
4 is an individual event, and it is the American triathlon runner Gwen Jorgensen. She won U.S. triathlon gold for the first time ever. 6 years ago, she was working as a tax accountant, sitting in her office when she got a call from the U.S. Triathlon Committee, and 6 years later, she is winning gold in the Olympics, which is even more impressive because she ran in the U.S. triathlon. She ran in the triathlon event in London in 2012 and was finished in 38th place because of a flat tire in the bike portion. So to come back from that, to keep working hard and to win, good for her. It
I
just kind
agree.
of shows that anyone, I mean, she was a swimmer and a runner in college at the University of Wisconsin, but from tax accountant to Olympic gold medalist, pretty cool story.
I would agree.
So that's four. Three is the United States running to victory. In particular, the women's 100-meter hurdles, where Brianna Rollins, Nia Ali, and Christy Castlin completed the first ever sweep in that event in the Olympics history. One finishing 1, 2, 3 in the 100-meter hurdles, and just seeing their faces and just their emotion after that win was that sweep, I should say, was fantastic. And a sort of honorable mention to that, in the 1500 meters just a couple days ago, American Matt Centrowitz won and was the first American to do so since 1908, following up um, his dad, who was a two-time Olympic medalist. His dad was there to see the medal. Huge upset. People were speculating like a 25-1 odds for him to win this 1500-meter final. Pretty cool to see his reaction as well, with the tattoo like father, like son across his chest. Pretty cool that he actually was able to live up to that tattoo and win a medal like his dad. Second, it's hard to believe that this is second, but first is pretty self-explanatory. Second was Brazil finishing strong in their home country in the Olympics.
Good for that. That was a redemption. That was cool.
Particularly Neymar winning the football, or as Americans like to say, soccer gold
It had
medal
to be like, how else could it have ended other than a shootout against Germany?
in penalty kicks after beating. Now, people have been making the comparison to the World Cup in 2014, 7-1 embarrassment in Brazil by the Germans. Now, there weren't too many similarities between the teams, as in the personnel was very different for both sides, being that in men's soccer in the Olympics, most of your team, save 3 players, must be under the age of 23. So a lot of the German national team not in attendance,
Eligible, yeah.
and a lot of the Brazilian national team not in attendance. But Neymar was one of the exceptions that the Brazilian used,
Neymar!
and he was able to put it away to a roaring crowd in the Maracanã in Rio, and that was impressive.
Ooh, hold on. Speaking of soccer in Brazil, where the hell was Pele?
It's a good question.
Did he end up showing up in the closing?
I didn't see him.
Oh my god. Did they not have Pele?
I didn't watch the whole closing ceremony, to be fair, but that is a fair point.
Did he say something that upset the Olympic Committee?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna-
that's,
well-
that's
All right, as you do your number one, I'll look up and see.
so. And again, some honorable mentions within that Brazil strong finishing men's beach volleyball with the team of Bruno and Alisson winning gold, and the men's volleyball indoor volleyball team also winning gold yesterday. So a couple of golds to finish out the Olympics in Rio for the Brazilians was pretty cool. But number one has to be the fastest man ever. Usain Bolt completed the triple triple, meaning he won the 100 meter, 200 meter, and just a few days ago winning as part of a team the 4x100 meter relay, and I mean going away. Something that I've heard multiple NBC employees say their most favorite memory of these past Olympics was either Michael Phelps winning his final gold medal or Usain Bolt coming around that turn in person, seeing him come around that curve in the 200-meter final. Just seeing how fast he actually was. And if you watch the 4x100-meter relay final, the gold medal match, Japan actually had almost a slight lead coming into that final leg, and you were like, maybe somehow Usain Bolt doesn't have enough in the tank, and he literally won by nearly a full half second. It wasn't even close. and to see him under pressure. Speaking with my dad, I thought this was an interesting comment, saying in the 100 meter and 200 meter is an individual event, right? So he knows that he is the fastest man in the world. No one can touch him. But when he runs in that 4x100 meter event, he has to rely on other teammates in order to get that gold medal. So if they had come in way behind, we were really going to see what Usain Bolt was made of. And we did when the Japanese came in almost neck and neck with him, and he literally just pulled
He's
away.
just smiling the whole time. I've never seen an athlete who might. I don't think there's going to be any athlete who just has as much fun as him either.
People were starting to compare him. I've heard some people say that is very similar to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, and
Very
you know what?
similar.
After this, I might say that's a fair comparison.
Yeah, because
he just owns it, man.
he owns
if there's
it.
a spotlight on him, he's winning.
Muhammad Ali, obviously one of his most famous quotes after a fight, saying, "I am the greatest." And Usain Bolt has said that multiple times now, and how is it's so hard not to believe that, because he's won 9 medals in the Olympics, all of them gold. The triple triple has to be the number one moment of the last week of the Olympics.
I would agree that it's a very strong list. I ended up doing for mine just I just did a theme for the entire thing, and these are no particular order. I just wanted to do women of the Olympics because there's been a lot of hoopla over like how sometimes the coverage can be gendered toward the male audience, where it's like the wife of pro bowler,
Yes.
blah blah blah, or how there's an interesting one where it's like it's a picture of this women's volleyball game, a picture taken by a woman, which is just the two like trying to block the shot in midair, versus like this picture of a butt. It's a nice picture. Well, it's like the butt, and then you see the other person in focus on the distance, and I'm like, it's a good picture, but it's also like sort of male gazy, SJW. So so I just picked a couple that I really liked. So Michelle Carter became the second woman or second shot put medal ever for the Team USA, man or woman, which is just awesome.
And that was really cool to see her. She shared that moment with her dad, who was also an Olympic medalist. And so that was pretty cool to see her share that moment and to see her excitement. It was pretty remarkable.
Allyson Felix, while we've been talking about Usain Bolt and Michael Phelps record breaking, she is now the most decorated Olympic female track athlete with 6 medals.
Yes,
6 gold medals.
That was certainly in consideration when I was making my list. Yeah. Probably if we're talking about most impressive, obviously I picked a couple of stories with that were just maybe awe-inspiring stories of persistence. But if we're talking about raw talent in this Olympics, Allyson Felix, in her individual as well as her team events, she was pretty remarkable to watch.
And there, like that picture of her just carrying the baton like a torch at the end, that's iconic. That's the stuff legends are made of. Another one, I'm afraid, sorry, Ecto Cooler. I'm probably going to mispronounce this name. Kimia Alzed-Zenurin. She won the bronze medal in Taekwondo for Iran, becoming the first women's athlete from Iran to ever medal.
Wow.
And I think that is freaking
very cool.
Good for her. If there's ever a sign that the world is like changing and turning toward the positive, that's one of them, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited for that. Ooh, this is tough. What am I on? That's 3, right?
That's 3.
Okay. Ooh, this is tough. Really should have planned this out better. You know what? I mentioned Sarah Robles before. I'm gonna go Simone Manuel as usual. First Black female athlete to win an individual gold medal in swimming, and an Olympic record.
And I mentioned last night rewatching some of the best moments that they had on TV for about an hour or so. They relived some of the best moments, and one of them was United States swimming in general. But I thought her reaction to her Olympic record and first place gold medal finish was probably one of the most genuine and really, really just spine-tingling reactions that we've seen from these Olympics. Just like pure elation and surprise on her face when she realized that she'd gotten that Olympic record was so cool to see. Again,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was really awesome.
And of course, this one would probably be a number one if I was making this numbered. Simone Biles, the America's sweetheart, the smiling, I mean, how can you not love her? She's the most decorated American gymnast ever.
And she's been in one. This was her
In a
first
single
Olympics.
singular Olympics. She might not even compete next time, and she's already the most decorated.
Oh man,
Like
so
the
yeah,
the amount of grace. Like I'm not a big gymnast guy, but just watching her in that like floor performance, that move where she does the front flip and poses at the end. That's just pageantry. It's just graceful,
yeah.
powerful. She's just so cool, and she just seems so giddy about all of this. She
That
got to carry the. How cool is it that she got to carry the flag over Michael Phelps?
yeah, she seems such a genuine person, as do a lot of her teammates. Almost all, I mean, all of her teammates on that team really just seem like genuinely nice, down to earth people. And Simone, just you're right, just absolutely blowing the competition away and stunning people the entire Olympics. And I thought what was so cool, as you mentioned, getting to carry the flag into the closing ceremonies of the Olympics. Um, People were stopped. I mean, people from nations all around the world were stopping to take pictures with Simone Biles just as they were walking into the stadium. How cool to see that, to see her performance and how it touched so many other athletes, world class athletes participating in these Olympics. To be so wowed and awe inspired by a 19-year-old gymnast was pretty cool to watch. And she is only 19, as we mentioned. There's a good chance that she is not done. She
I hope
very
not.
well might be
I
back.
want to see her win all 5 gold. I want to see her do
And
that. I
and
want to see her become the undisputed, unquestionable legend, like the kind of person we'd make bronze statues for.
right, and people are already talking about how she may be the best gymnast of all time. And as we mentioned, only one Olympics, of course, 3 world titles before the Olympics, um, in international competition, in the individual all around, I should say. So obviously, no surprise in these Olympics, but so cool to watch.
Agreed. I couldn't think of a transition.
That's
More
no,
ecto
no,
cooler,
no.
please.
That's more so cooler.
So unfortunately, we have to go to the negative side of the Olympics now, which specifically in this case, well, I mean, there's a couple. Like for the most part, it went off without hitches. We had someone got dysentery. There was a couple nasty spills and injuries, but that broken leg on the first night. But the biggest thing, Ryan Lochte, I was right. I knew he made that up. I'm like, this seems a little too, like, there seems something wrong here. As it turns out, apparently, well, okay, so what happened was they went to a gas station. I guess they tried to use the bathroom. They ended up peeing in the bush. Ryan Lochte, like, made a fuss and might have, like, chipped or broken something. The security guards come
Try
out.
tearing down an entire billboard on the side of the gas station.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he got crazy, and the security officers came out. They had their weapons holstered and were like, hey, man, you gotta pay for that. And they just left. Now, his lawyer's trying to spin it as, hey, you know what? One way or the other, if someone points a gun at you and demands you give them money, that's robbery, even if it's justified or not. And I'm like, well, I mean, if we're getting didactic about it, I guess.
And it's interesting because just talking to people about just hearing their reactions over the last couple of days, I've heard people say that, especially if right that even if the the damage was done by Ryan Lochte, someone having a gun and pulling it and demanding money from you, like that's frightening. So I'm listening. I'm not condoning Ryan Lochte's behavior by any means, but it can be like, shouldn't that be handled differently? Like if you vandalized something, shouldn't there be someone that says, all right, we're going to give you a ticket for this. This is going to court, instead of pulling a gun and demanding money on the spot? It seems pretty. It seems like that's not how the system should work. And I'm not trying to
I
put this
know. I
back
know what
on
you're saying.
Brazil,
It's
but
tough.
it is. So my point is I can see why. I can see how it was pretty easy for him to make up that story that he was robbed at gunpoint.
Well,
But
it's tough.
you can't. But you can't be. You can't do that because
Yeah, it's tough because it's like Ryan Lochte's a. I hate to use the term douchebag, but this is pretty douchey on his part. And like the fact that the media is calling him, oh, he's just a kid. He's 30 years old, guys. For God, he's like this isn't a first pony show. He should be above this crap by now.
Yeah.
Like just because he's an athlete doesn't mean he gets to be called a kid longer than everybody else is.
Yeah.
But
I agree with that.
So
I mean, it was just stupid. It was immature.
And there is something to like, and some people are like, man, it takes a lot of entitlement to go to a foreign country, smash everything up, and then blame the brown people for it. And I'm like, well, I sort of agree with that, where it's like, of course, like if this were just your average Joe, we would not be making excuses for him. Which I'm like, that's fair. I don't know, like, but at the same time, just the level of like snideness and like pettiness it takes for the Brazilian government to pull two people off of planes demanding they make answers. It's like, with the amount of crap you're dealing with right now, is this really your top priority? And apparently, someone from Britain got robbed at gunpoint too. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder how they're gonna solve this one. Like, they're gonna have so much egg on their face they could turn into an omelet.
And that was a discussion is that a lot of criminal activity actually increased while the Rio Games were happening, not to say in the Olympic area or in the Olympic Village, but outside of it because people knew that most of the security was going to be focused on the guests and the athletes and the Olympic Village itself. And so I don't remember the specific number, but shootings and shooting deaths over the last 2 weeks actually rose in the area because authorities were stationed to to really make sure that these games were safe, which I'm not saying was a bad thing. But again, like you said, spending so much time and resource on really trying to figure out if Ryan Lochte was robbed at gunpoint and then demanding that Jimmy Fegan, one of the not demanding, but Jimmy Fegan essentially having to pay nearly $11,000.
It's just
making a
like,
donation.
Both sides are incredibly childish here.
Because
it's like, no, you can't leave. This is not you are framing us. This is
doesn't that border on almost extortion? $11,000 to essentially get.
There's
his
no laws
back?
with the Olympics, Nick. There's no rules in this game but win at any cost.
And listen,
and don't cheat.
And Ryan Lochte is obviously the first one to point a finger and blame here because he clearly vandalized the gas station. He was a citation for public urination, and he essentially he got out of there. He just left the country,
He's just like,
and he
he
left his teammates in the wake of this mess.
I hope, like, I don't want to see Ryan Lochte again.
And the worst part is he went on and did exclusive interviews and lied about the whole thing multiple times. It's like you said, people are calling him a kid, and I don't know if it's to make, maybe it is, I haven't read context of those remarks, but it might just be because of the childishness and immaturity of such a
because it's hard to comprehend
story.
An adult can be this freaking dumb.
It is. It's pretty remarkable that someone could make up a story like that. But as I mentioned, obviously the other side, it would be easy to make up a story if someone is demanding money and has a gun pulled in your general direction. You can see where you might be able to make up a story about that. I'm not saying it was right, but also feel like maybe it should have been handled slightly differently by the authorities. It just kind of stole the spotlight. I read stuff that said it kind of stole it took away the heart and soul of the games, and I was like, I don't think that that's a fair assessment, but I think it's fair to say that Ryan Lochte's fabricated story definitely stole the spotlight for a couple of days at the Olympics, which is kind of disappointing.
Agreed. I mean, honestly, that was a big negative. Moving on, overall feels. What is your? I know we talked about this last week, but you know what? For all the for all the rage and stress about these Olympics, I demanded they be canceled for different occasions, just on this podcast. But you know what? The games themselves were wonderful. I'm hopefully more South American countries have a chance, even though this one didn't quite work out. Uh, we got to see two. We got to see two legends wrap it up. A couple more be made. We got to see unprecedented levels of like historic diversity. We got to see we got to see the greatest gymnast, the greatest swimmer. We got to see the greatest runner. Arguably, we got to see some of like a couple of the greatest track athletes. We got to see like a level of legacy and quality we've never seen before.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and this is, I feel pretty much the same way. Is that for all the negative talk about the outside factors and how they would affect the the games, as you mentioned, a couple people did get sick. Some things weren't finished on time, but in the grand scheme of things, to most people who are not able to go to the Olympics in person, but to watch them through their television, pretty remarkable stuff. I mean, I feel like those outside contributing factors that people were going to have a problem with really didn't come into play all that often, and I think that was I think that was a good I think that was a good lesson that people were making such a big deal out of this, that I think people have to, while there are legitimate concerns, people have to come in and kind of see a more positive side of things, um, and I think that that's really what helped carry these Olympics
I mean,
through.
yeah, it's easy for snide people like me to take pot shots from the distance because the internet has ruined me, and Ghostbusters Discorum has made me a bitter, angry human being. But I agree with that.
Yeah.
Real quick, our last quick. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No. Are we moving on to Tokyo yet?
Tokyo, yes.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, for all my anxiety about Rio, I'm excited for Japan. One, because I know everything's going to be freaking done, because they already have most of the stuff in place already. And two, because if this or their introduction ceremony was going to be any indication, it gonna be weird, man.
No, it's going to be legendary.
Uh,
Similar. You know what? How did I forget this? How did I not put Boomer Phelps on my top 5 list?
I'm gonna slap you in the face
that
if you
is
bring up
left to-
Boomer Phelps one more time.
That is left to be determined.
That's not a joke.
That
This is
kid's
real
gonna be a
right
legend.
now.
Anyway, talk about legendary though. I looked it up. It was the prime minister of all of Japan. It wasn't just Tokyo. It wasn't just the mayor of Tokyo. The prime minister of all of Japan, literally in this video, this video showing what
Yeah, they had
the
like a live
2020
bit to
Olympics.
start with the what I could only describe as Marie Antoinette as a robot people
Yes,
making a giant rising sun.
it's normal.
A pretty cool little visual graphic of like all these different athletes in the red and white.
Yeah,
Then we cut ahead a little anime for some reason.
yeah. There was
Um,
some Pac-Man, some anime, and of course,
Surprising amount of anime. And then we get to Hello
oh,
Kitty.
Hello Kitty makes a
Yeah,
guest
see,
appearance.
well,
I
it's
forgot.
gonna be
I
zany.
forgot about that.
Then we cut to the Prime Minister. Nick, you can take the floor.
Yeah, the Prime Minister realizes that he's going to be late from Rio.
How irresponsible can he be to be driving there then?
He's like,
It's already
oh, I'm
happened.
in Tokyo. We need to get to Rio, which is conveniently about halfway around the world. What do we
Pretty
do?
sure that's not how it works.
Call Mario, of course. And yes, I'm referring to the lovable Italian plumber, Mario. And
Mario.
And
That's canon.
he literally, so he morphs with Mario and becomes Mario and drills a giant green, what is the technical term?
Pipe.
It's
I
just
think
a pipe.
warp pipe.
Warp pipe. He drills a giant green warp pipe, or has one of the characters of the 2020 Olympics do it for him, and shoots down the tube as Mario. And then the greatest thing happens. Live in Rio, the Prime Minister of Japan emerges from a green warp pipe holding a red ball, which appears to be sort of the symbol of the
Yeah,
2020
like a red,
Olympics, just a
which I'm
red
like nice
orb
sphere.
type thing, wearing a Mario hat.
You know what?
I don't even like. If you haven't seen this, people, like, you need to go look
You know
this
what?
up on the internet.
There's a lot of stuff about this man and his government that's concerning. They want to revise the Japanese constitution for the first time since the 40s. They want to bring back the military. A lot of reports come out that they sort of idealized the past, like the emperors. But you know what? If there was one thing that was going to get me to like this guy and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe he's okay. Maybe we can work with this guy. It would be that.
Unbelievable stuff.
Like, you know what? This is going to be one weird Olympics, and I'm genuinely excited for it.
It's going to be great.
Honestly, like, my favorite part of the closing ceremony is always what the new country brings, because I always like looking for, because it's always fun to see, like, oh man, that's the, because they're like the teasers from the Marvel movies. It's like, oh man, the Infinity War is only 3 movies away, and it's like, that was probably my
zany Hello Kitty, Mario, and other anime type things are only 4 years away.
Oh man, I wonder how much Nintendo got paid to use their, like, I'm like, the company's not doing so well now. That probably is going to keep them from bankruptcy if the NX doesn't work out. Yeah, I loved it. That was a blast. Future stuff for us to talk about in the distant future. Any other notes?
That's all I got.
It would look like we are reaching the horizon point here, Nick.
Yeah.
Summer is pretty much over for both of us. You go back to Syracuse.
Yep.
When?
Oh, this week, yeah.
I go back to NYU Sunday. Man, it was a pretty good summer, I'd say.
Yeah.
I had some adventures. We yucked. I ruined a pair of shoes. 2 pairs of shoes if I count that hike.
What a legendary moment.
Oh, that's gonna live with me forever.
Never forget.
Oh man. We had some yucks. There was some squads that were suicided. There was trips to mountains and trips to beaches, and my attempts to go to Six Flags were foiled at every turn. Maybe Christmas. We'll go Christmas. Christmas Day. I don't care if you have families. You're going.
Oh no.
I think this was a fun adventure, a fun experiment. Don't worry, few fans. You're not going to be starving for content. I'm working on a new series. It's going to be called Armchair Director, about how tiny changes could fix the plots of certain movies. Look forward to that. Nick, you have any products you want to post on the webpage, you're welcome. I don't know what you have planned. We're probably going to come back around. Maybe we'll do a Thanksgiving special. Who knows? Definitely. Once winter comes around, we'll be back at the wheel doing some episodes. So this is the end of effectively season 1 of the podcast. You get a pretty good arc, pretty good story of all of our misadventures, and you know what? Be excited for the future, man. Be pumped.
That's what I'm saying.
There's gonna be some cool new stuff on the horizon. Be there. Be square. Be hip.
Don't cry that it's over. Be glad that it happened.
Yeah. And to end season 1 on a crazy cliffhanger, it turns out Darth Vader was Luke's father the whole time.
The look on your face right now. It's like,
I'm dying out here.
I don't know.
Get the cane out. I'm dying. I'm dying.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of something television related.
Oh,
But television. No. Oh, God.
No.
Get the cane
No.
out. Goodbye, everybody. This was Carter.
And I'm super special guest star Nick.
Have a great fall, and we'll see ya around.